little dresser that I'm going to be working on in this week's video is a complete departure from my normal sleek, smooth, modern vibe. But I have had this Anthropologie enchanted dresser stuck in my brain for about a year now. I think the first time that I saw this dresser was on the actual Anthropologie website. I like to go there every couple of weeks and just see what's going on. But I've also seen a few other incredibly talented furniture artists put their own twist on this dresser, specifically Debbie from Debbie's Design Diary. But as soon as I scrolled past this dresser, I just got sucked in by the beautiful florals and all of the texture. It just made me so happy. So when I found a cute little 3-drawer French provincial dresser at the thrift store a few weeks ago, I decided this is it. I'm going to take the plunge and put my own twist on this beautiful enchanted design. This is the dresser I'm going to be working with. It's a really cute little Malcolm Furniture 3-drawer French provincial dresser, and I think it's going to be a great canvas for this project. I always start by removing all of the drawers and giving everything a really thorough cleaning inside and out. While I'm cleaning my pieces, I also like to give everything a really good inspection. I check the inside of the dresser, the drawer runners, the bottoms and backs of the drawers for any areas that may need to be glued back together or screwed back in place. Once everything was nice and clean and dry, I came back with some 220 grit sandpaper on my SurfPrep sander and just scuffed up the surface lightly. Since I'm going to be creating a really textured finish, I'm not really worried too much about smoothing out any nicks or dings. That's all gonna get covered up. Because I'm going to be using a white paint on this dresser, I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple of coats of my favorite Zinsser BIN shellacked base primer. The shellac in this primer is going to seal in any wood tannins that may want to bleed up through my new light finish. I like to apply this primer with a 4-inch microfiber roller, and previously I had just been using these as a one-time use and tossing them after each piece. But I've recently discovered that I can store them in a plastic zip top bag in my refrigerator and use the same roller for 3 or 4 projects before I need to toss it. This primer has a really harsh odor and is very sticky, so I like to use it in a well-ventilated area. I often wear my respirator when I'm working with it. I always put on a pair of latex gloves to protect my hands as well. Once I had my 2 coats of primer rolled over the entire piece, I tucked my roller base back in the zip top bag and I can pop that away for use on my next project. Next up, I'm going to put a quick base coat over my primer. I'm using Annie Sloan chalk paint in the color Old White. It's really difficult to see me applying this on the camera over the white primer, but it's just a slightly warmer, creamier white tone that's going to give me a really beautiful textured finish. The key here is texture. You can see that I'm using a brush in a really haphazard way to really accentuate the brush strokes and add a lot of detail and dimension to this dresser, just like the inspiration from Anthropologie. You can see here that I did remove the hardware for priming and painting, but I'm going to pop it back on quickly because when I start applying all of my appliques, I want to make sure that I'm not getting in the way of where the hardware will sit. Now for the fun part. This is very tedious, but I'm going to be making a whole bunch of my own appliques with these beautiful silicone molds by Redesign with Prima. I am using the aviary mold with the birds as well as their cherry blossom mold. I started out by dusting all of the details in the molds with some cornstarch and a small artist brush. This just helps the paper clay that I'm using release out of the molds a little bit easier. And making these appliques really is like kindergarten art class. I'm using a paper clay product here that I got off of Amazon. I will link it down in the description box. And basically just smushing it into the molds, removing the excess, and gently peeling my appliques out. You do have to be really cautious and use a light touch when you are working with these molds so that you're not accidentally smushing out all of the details that you've created. The rest is really all up to artistic interpretation. I made a few molds at a time and then used some wood glue and a small paintbrush to glue my molds onto the dresser wherever I thought they looked good. The paper clay is super pliable and flexible while it's wet, so it's great for molding around all of the different details on the dresser. Once I was done and happy with the way that the molds were looking on the top surface of the dresser, I just started working my way down. If your appliques are heavy or they look like they're starting to slide down the dresser before that glue is dry, you can always kind of secure them in place with a little bit of painter's tape. I did end up laying the dresser on its back so that I could apply the rest of the appliques onto the front surface without having to worry about gravity taking over. I tried to be really cautious about keeping my design away from the edges of the drawers where things would open and close, but I did have a few spots where I really wanted it to overlap. So I came in while my clay was still wet with a sharp painter's tool and just cut the design where the drawer needed to move and made sure nothing was going to catch. At this point, I think I have all of the appliques exactly where I want it. I'm really happy with how things are looking. So I'm gonna let this dresser dry really well for 2 days before I come back and paint. Two days later, when everything was nice and dry, I came back, removed those poles again, and applied another 2 coats of my Annie Sloan chalk paint. Again, this dresser design is all about the texture. So I used a combination of this kind of cross-hatch brush motion, and I also used a stippling effect to work the paint down into all of the details in those appliques for a more seamless look. A few hours later, once my chalk paint was good and dry, I came back and sprayed 2 coats of Varathane Diamond Wood Finish over everything to lock it all in place. Because of all the intricate detail, I decided that spraying this was going to be my best option. This product doesn't yellow if it's applied properly, but if it's left to pool in any areas, like in all those teeny tiny little flower petals, you may get some yellowing. So spraying, I think, is the best option for this, but it could be carefully applied with a brush or a painting sponge, as long as you're careful to make sure it's not pooling up in any small areas. I am so excited about how this dresser came together. Let me show you what it looks like all finished up.
Don't be a stranger in the night. Take a chance for some romance. Don't cover your eyes. Willow trees know you better than anyone else. It's time you let your guard down for someone like me. I'd say I'm settled and pretty calm.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today as I do what I do. I really hope that this video inspires your creativity and helps you think outside the box when you're restyling your own furniture pieces. Please make sure that you leave me a big thumbs up, a comment down below, tap the subscribe button before you go, and I will catch you guys next time. I forgot to mention that I did try a few molds with this natural modeling clay, and it was really just too sticky and fell apart when I was trying to unmold it. And then when it dried out, it was really crumbly and brittle. So I definitely think that the paper clay was the best way to go.
Goddess, you cover them all. Say, walking